Hello and welcome to Boosting You, the ultimate wellness platform. And I'm Shirley McLean. And as always, joined with my lovely friend, Dr. Sue Peacock. And this week is all about um, Children's Mental Health Week, which is, we're going to focus on this, which is really, really quite close to my heart, because it's a wonderful, wonderful, focusing on how we can help those young minds, whether we're parents, grandparents, aunties, carers, teachers, or simply just adults who care.
Yeah, thank you, Shirley. Because I think, like you say, this is such an important topic, isn't it? Because children don't always have the words to explain how they feel, do they? So often their emotions show up in their behaviour instead.
Yeah, absolutely. The Children's Mental Health Week is all about recognizing that children's mental health does matter, just as much as their physical health does as well, because children do experience stress, anxiety, sadness, overwhelm, just as we do. There's no different, but they don't yet have the language or the emotional tools to explain what's happening inside. So it reminds us that emotional well-being starts early, those early years. We're learning all the time, we're hardwired for emotions, and that supportive relationship that, those are the strongest protective factors for those younger people in those early years. They're their foundations, aren't they?
Absolutely. So it's not about fixing children, is it? It's about understanding them.
Mm. Yeah, yeah, exactly. Because, children thrive when they do feel safe, when they feel seen and when they're heard as well. I always say, as you know, they're like shining diamonds. We're all like shining diamonds. We're unique, we're original, we all have different upbringings, and, we've all had different events that have taken place, and our brains take all of this information in so differently,
Mm.
so it's really important that kids, they're emotionally charged. They need that emotional support in those early years. They do matter so much.
Absolutely, it does. Yeah, absolutely. Because when children feel emotionally supported, their nervous systems learn to be regulated or learn how to regulate themselves, which means they're better able to cope with stress or disappointment and change later on in life.
Yeah.
And kind of, without that support, stress can stay stored in the body, can't it, leading to
Mhm.
anxiety or anger or with them withdrawing.
Yeah. So, emotional skills, our life skills, we all need to have that resilience, that little toolbox, if you like, but that knowledge and that understanding of ourselves, really, don't we? There's always going to be bumps in the road, which is what we tell our clients all the time on our journeys. And, this awareness just allows us to expand, allows us to transition through those bumps in the road, just those periods, just a little bit more effectively, a little bit smoother. And it provides those little dreamers, our little kids and everything, with the support that they need as well, doesn't it?
Yeah, and I think that's really important, isn't it? Having that awareness of how children show emotional stress. And I think, one of the most important golden nuggets to kind of remember is that, behavior is communication.
Yeah, absolutely. That one sentence can just completely change how we respond, can't they? Because they are that they're all so different. I have three kids, as you know, that are all grown up now, but they've been so emotionally different in so many ways along the way. Children don't always say, "I'm struggling," do they?
No, I don't know. But you might notice things like tantrums, stomach aches,
Mm.
problems, they may withdraw, they may become sort of over clingy. And when a child is withdrawn or angry, perhaps tearful, defiant, or maybe even unusually quiet, often they're communicating that something doesn't feel safe or manageable for them.
Yeah, and I think many adults as well, they think, they're doing something wrong as well, don't they?
And that, yeah, that just, that worry alone shows how much they care, doesn't it? But Children don't need perfect adults, they need regulated adults.
Yeah. And that feels reassuring, doesn't it? That, from a nervous system perspective, children borrow regulation from the adults around them, don't they? We are all energy and we have these mirror neurons that model things as well. So when an adult stays calm, grounded, when they're present, that child's nervous system can begin to settle a little bit too. So the adult's emotional state really does matter, doesn't it?
Yeah, it absolutely does, doesn't it? And that's why, this is the mantra, isn't it? Self-care isn't selfish because for adults, if we practice self-care, it's part of our way of supporting children.
Yeah. So, what are some practical ways that we can help children feel emotionally safe?
I think it's about listening, isn't it, without immediately fixing things. I think that can be one of the most powerful tools because I think children want to be heard more than they necessarily want solutions.
Yeah. And that can be hard for adults, can't it? Who want to make things better.
Absolutely, because we always want to make them better, don't we? But I think another golden nugget would be kind of validation doesn't necessarily mean agreement. It's more about understanding.
Yeah. And that's such an important distinction, isn't it?
Yeah, I think also things like naming emotions can help. So saying things like, um, it looks like you're feeling frustrated. Those kind of things can help children feel seen and teaches that emotional literacy.
Yeah. So they actually learn that language of the feelings from an early
Yeah,
age, don't they? Which is one of the elements of understanding emotions.
yeah, exactly that. Absolutely. I also think that routines are incredibly important because predictability helps children feel safe in a world that can feel unpredictable.
Yeah, and especially during those times of stress, that is important, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think we also need to remember that emotional struggles in children aren't a sign of failure. It's just, there's a sign that more support is perhaps needed at this point in time.
Yeah, and that removes a lot of the blame.
Yeah, because blame never helps, does it? I
No.
think we need to be more compassion, perhaps. So I guess another takeaway message from our session today is that connection becomes before correction.
Yeah, and that's absolutely so powerful what you've just said there. Because when the children feel that connected, they're more able to learn, aren't they? They're more able to reflect and regulate as well. When they feel disconnected, behavior often escalates, doesn't it?
Yeah, yeah. So that's why I think presence is really the foundation of all of this.
Yeah. It is, absolutely. And finally, I want just to say this to anyone supporting a child. You don't have to get it right all the time. Repairs matter more than perfection. So, with that in mind, it's bye from me till next time.
Thanks, Shirley. That's such a lovely, compassionate place to end, isn't it? So it's bye from me too.